The Museum of Freedom and Human Rights inaugurated in May 2019 on the Amador Causeway in Panama City is the flagship project of the Democracy and Freedom Foundation. This museum offers an immersive journey through the history of human rights, both in Panama and globally. Hello guys, my name is Leslie and today I'm going to tell you about my experience at the Freedom Museum in its Timeline exhibition. The Museum of Freedom and Human Rights in Panama features and details timeline exhibit that traces the evolution of human rights, both globally and specifically within Panama. This timeline begins in 1215 with the signing of the Magna Carta in England and concludes in 1948 with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Uniquely, the upper part of this exhibit focuses on events that occur in Panama, while the lower part highlights international milestones in the development of human rights. This dual perspective offers visitors a comprehensive understanding of how these fundamental rights have evolved over time and across different contexts. The Museum of Freedom and Human Rights in Panama shows you about human rights. It really highlights that you are the most important part. Human rights start and end with you. The exhibit puts the 30 rules from the Universal Declaration into simple groups, from your own rights to rights for everyone. It teaches you that these rights are for our people and that each of you must protect and respect them.
Physical integrity. The issue of physical integrity encompasses multiple essential dimensions within the framework of human rights. Unfortunately, this right is violated in various situations that we observe during our visit to the museum. Cases such as sexual exploitation, gender violence, inequality, forced labor, and forced marriages reflect how, in many contexts, human dignity is profoundly disrespected. One of the aspects that most caught my attention was the depiction of forced marriages, especially of underage girls. One of the exhibits showed the history of an 11-year-old girl who was forced to leave her school and family to marry a 40-year-old man in exchange for money. This type of practice represents a serious violation of the freedom, autonomy, and integral development of minors. Another shocking fact was a sentence that indicated that in 16 countries, women's testimony does not have the same legal value as that of a man in a court of law. This inequality is evidence of the structural discrimination that many women still face today, where they are denied the right to be heard with equality and respect. On the other hand, the museum also made visible the reality of forced labor, especially for men who are exploited on fishing vessels in the South China Sea. These workers face subhuman conditions, diseases, and in some cases are even chained to the boats to prevent them from escaping. Physical integrity is an essential human right that guarantees respect for human life, dignity, and freedom. However, as we saw during our tour to the museum, this right continues to be violated in many parts of the world. Recognizing this reality invites us to reflect on our role as a society to denounce, make visible, and act in favor of those who are victims of violence, exploitation, and discrimination. The defense of physical integrity must be a collective and constant commitment.
Privacy, family, and belief. This section is part of the Equality Pavilion, one of the 3 thematic pavilions that shape the museum's experience. It highlights the right protected by Article 12, 16, and 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which guarantee the right to privacy, the right to form a family, and the freedom of religion or belief. Specifically, Article 12, right to privacy. No one shall be subject to arbitrary interference in personal or family life. Article 16, right to marry and to form a family with equal rights regardless of gender, and Article 18, freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, including changing religion or choosing none. What is present in this section? One is privacy. The museum showcases contemporary and global examples of how personal privacy is violated in today's world, especially government and corporate surveillance, the misuse of personal data on social media, intrusions into personal life due to political, religious, or cultural motive. The goal is to raise awareness about privacy as a fundamental and non-negotiable right, essential for human dignity and autonomy. Two is family. This part of the exhibit promotes an inclusive and diverse concept of family. It affirms the right of every person to freely choose who to love and form a family with, without discrimination based on sexual orientation, gender identity, religion, or background. It includes these diverse family models: nuclear families, extended families, single-parent families, and same-sex parent families. The exhibit aims to normalize and celebrate families' diversity as part of today's reality and a human right. 3 is belief. In terms of beliefs, this museum supports the right to practice, change, or not have any religion, freedom of thought and conscience, protection from persecution for one's spiritual or philosophical beliefs. Historical and modern examples are displayed to show both religious persecution and the defense of freedom of belief as a core human right. Privacy in the digital age, subsection of the Privacy, Family, and Belief exhibit. The museum places a strong emphasis on modern threats to digital privacy, encouraging visitors to reflect on how exposed we are in today's hyperconnected world. What does the museum present? 1. Screens and interactive panels show real-life cases of social media abuse, personal data leaks, government surveillance, cyberbullying, and algorithm and IA tracking. 2. The museum invites you to question how much personal information we give away every day, without even noticing. And 3. It also makes clear that digital privacy is not just a tech issue, it is a fundamental human right. Main message: the more connected we are, the more vulnerable we become. The exhibit encourages critical thinking about oversharing on social media, accepting cookies without reading, downloading unsafe or untrusted apps, using technologies like facial recognition without knowing how they work. Why is this section important? Because today, digital surveillance and tracking don't only come from governments, companies, apps, and even strangers online can access our data. Our identity, habits, emotions, and belief can be exposed, sold, or manipulated without our full consent. That's why this part of the exhibit teaches protecting your privacy is equal to protecting your freedom. What solutions or advice does the museum offer? Think before you post, use privacy settings and encrypted apps, be aware of what you're granted access to, and learn about your digital rights.
The Museum of Freedom and Human Rights in Panama is not the only exhibition space, but also an active platform to education, reflection, and the promotion of fundamental values. This museum directly addresses human rights, including economic, social, and cultural rights, and encourages civic participation as an essential part of a democratic and just society. In point 1, we want to see economic, social, and cultural rights. These are essential part of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and include the right to work and fair working conditions, the rights to education, the rights to health, the right to housing, and also the right to participate in cultural life. The equality from the museum pavilions displays the 30 articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in an educational and interactive way. This guarantees the right to educate by facilitating free access to knowledge about citizens' rights and duties. The museums organize events, workshops, and exhibitions to celebrate Panamanian and global culture, highlighting the right of culture, identity, and diversity of thought and expression. With low admissions fees and includes spaces that the museum promotes the rights to cultural participation without discrimination. Looking at the civic participation point, that means that people are actively involved in their community, making collective decisions and assert their rights. How does this museum promote this? The museum promotes forums, schools activities, and events where citizens can debate, learn, and express your ideas about the democracy, justice, and equality. The exhibitions are designed to invite the reflection and issues such as poverty, inequality, racism, genocide, and repression. The empowers peoples, especially young people, to question and actively participate in social issues. In a personal connection, what does this mean for me? As a young citizen, I have rights that go beyond the legal. I have the right to develop fully, to express myself, to participate in the culture of my country, and to have access to fair opportunities. Learn more about the society around me, participate in civic and school activities, denounce injustice, and promote equality.
Hi, I am Marlens. When I entered the Memory and Resistance in Chile exhibit at the Museum of Freedom, the first thing I saw was a section about the September 11, 1973 coup. The images of the bombing of La Moneda Palace made me think about how one day changed Chile's history so much. The guy explained how the military dictatorship began, and even though I didn't know all the details, the weight of the moments felt really seeing the photos of the tennis streets. Okay, next, we move to the exciting section, which highlights the stories of Chilean movement, with an special focus on the role of the Panamanian embassy in Santiago. I was surprised to learn that Panama opened its door to many of them, offering refuge in the middle of the chaos. There were documents and photos of these people arriving, and I imagined what it must have been like to leave everything behind out of fear of repression. In the next part, the section on systematic repression was the toughest. Photos of the detention centers and story of torture made me pause for a moment. The guide pointed out how the dictatorship controlled the population with a heavy hand. Finally, we reached the part about the path to democracy, focusing on the 1988 plebiscite. I saw posters and photos from the No campaign, where people united to vote against Pinochet. It was interesting to see how the no marked the end of the dictatorship, and I kept thinking about the collective effort it took to regain freedom after so long. As a student, leaving the exhibit and seeing how Panama played a role in the history made us connect with our own fight for rights. It was just learning facts, but feeling the weight of what it means to resist and rebuild. Sometimes there is still echoes when remembering those events. When I go to the last missing pieces due activity at the museum, I saw a huge canvas shaped like Panama made from a Greek like mesh. My classroom and I took a little jar buns and bright shades like pink, green, and yellow, and we happily tied them on, with each one representing our contribution. What I liked most was the idea that our small action meant something big. The guy explained that this was about us, the young people, and our role in building a future with more rights and respect.